Hey, John.
Hi.
Oh, wait, I got it. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Hampden-Wilbraham Regional School District School Committee Finance and Operations Subcommittee. It is 5:02. We'll call to order. Mike Terabasi here. Are you here? There you go. Rochelle Boudreau? Here. Sean Kennedy, I am here. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag's up there. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, excellent. Let's jump right into it with the cost-cutting savings being done by the district.
So you have a spreadsheet with updates here. Quite honestly, the newest updates are actually all in the budget driver sheet. As we talk about budget, those are all upcoming FY25 items. So there's not the new stuff is actually going to be embedded in our budget conversation. So savings on retiree health insurance, or removal of the Zoom license, some staff reductions at Green Meadows, TWB. We've increased our interest revenue, and we kept our employee health insurance to 0% for the upcoming year. So those are, sort of some of the things going on, and those are reflected in the budget that we have together right now.
Is there a total on this? Oh, at the top.
It's at the top. Yep.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone with any questions? Seeing none, let's move along here. The preliminary budget information for 2025.
Sure. So I've seen a few folks look at the colored sheet. We've had actually a lot of activity in the special education realm in the past week. If you look at the major budget drivers at the very bottom, we've needed to plan for some out-of-district students. But with those out-of-district students will be some savings in staff. So we have existing staff that we wouldn't need to continue if those students go out. So that would bring the budget up by about 50,000 all in. I'm sorry, 75,000. With that said, in the last 24 hours, John, we have had, I want to say, 3 or 4 other situations arise in special education, the net of which we believe will be fairly significantly positive. I can't speak to the specifics of each of those, but we would, once we're able to reconcile those and realize them, I would be happy to add them to the budget sheet and email that out to everybody here. I know, we're kind of getting down to the wire on things. The real tough part is we have to have budget 45 days ahead of time for the town meetings, which puts it at probably that March 21st deadline for school committee. But we have the special education has an April 1st deadline. So if there are move-ins and move-outs, if they move in or out after the April 1st deadline, you retain their cost for the upcoming year. If they move out before the April 1st deadline or in, you have to add them to your budget. So it sort of prevents, it basically means, once you've budgeted for it, right, you can't just have it just get tossed on another district. And vice versa, you can't just have it tossed on you. So we have, I want to say, 4 separate situations going on right now, and the net of those does look to be positive. And that's sort of the best I can give at the moment. As we realize those and hopefully the next week. We can provide more information by email. We could meet again, whatever, the committee wishes to do.
Would it be too early to talk about what that positive number would look like, or is it just, let's just leave it at that?
I mean, if I could give you a ballpark that based on some of the information, we'd be looking at a positive of, maybe a low positive of somewhere in the $150,000 range for the good on the budget.
By positive, you mean budget going down?
Yes, budget going down, yes. Support yes, I'm sorry. Positive, it means like yay positive, right?
Fiscally positive.
Fiscally positive, yeah.
Which means a decrease.
Yeah, I apologize, that's.
Yeah, let me make this clear that we will service all the students in our district as they need to be serviced to have the best outcome of their education. We are speaking in budget terms here, and in budget terms, a positive means that we have a decrease for whatever reason.
Yes. No students are losing services. Every student will receive these services if they're moving out. Will receive them in the town by law, in the new town that picks them up, or if we take someone in, we will continue to provide the level of service that they've received. So yes, you're correct. Again, the big change is, the only significant change is that item I alluded to at the bottom. When we get down to colored sheet, which I think is, what the towns tend to go with, we're at a net at the moment of 4.21%, which means a little bit higher for Wilbraham at 4.48, a little bit lower for Hamden at 3.38 at the moment, prior to us, sort of recognizing those gains that we talked about.
So those aren't the numbers on this sheet.
Yeah. So the changes that are on the major budget drivers, in version 4.2, if you look at the bottom, those are built into this current budget.
Okay.
But there are items that we have not added to this that I just alluded to that will be in version, I'll probably call it 5.0. It'll be a significant change, so I will update that as soon as we can realize those. Again, we always try to be conservative, so we can make some estimates, but I hate to try to guess at the moment beyond what I just said.
What changed from this colored sheet from the previous one? Because the last one, the Wilbraham, I think, was about a 1.176 assessment increase, and this one's at a 1.297, so went up over $100,000. Do we know what the differences were?
Let me take this would be the
well, it's on line 9, Sean. It's
yeah.
35A. Yeah, that's excluding the debt.
Let me look at that again. It is the net, it should be the net of the bottom 4 items on the major budget drivers down labeled 4.2. I can double check that and make sure that that's accurate. Nothing is
yes. I'm just saying it went up by over $100,000.
Yes. And I see that. Let me take a look at that.
Okay.
I don't.
And for full clarity and transparency, right now Wilbraham has.
Is your green button on?
It's not. I'm usually pretty loud as it is. I don't need it.
It's the camera so they can hear us, kind of folks who can't attend in person.
Full clarity, Wilbraham is not finished with their budget by any stretch. We have a lot of moving parts still, but we have $1 million placeholder in there. So that would leave us about a $300,000 delta, a little less than that, if we stick with that $1 million. Now, there's moving parts that need to be played with. So, but I mean, there's positives and there's negatives. I would say there's more negatives than positives as it currently exists today.
Okay.
But just to give you, I mean,
well, that
we're
gives us
slightly better, but we're not what we want to be.
That gives us some guidance. I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to get to, is figure out what some guidance is, and we'll do our best to try to get there. And if that, is indeed the case, we would, propose what's necessary to get there as an option.
So that's what we would hope to understand when we meet next as a group next week. If we can understand impacts.
Okay.
That really begins to make sense to us, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we can talk about numbers all we want, you just don't understand what that means in terms of service levels.
This is something that Mark has been very consistent with in all his years on this committee, is we need to be able to say, okay, you know, we have cut whatever, we can show that sheet, we can show so much we've cut, where the budget started, where it ends, numbers, numbers, numbers. But at the end of the day, if we don't get this number, what is going to happen in the district if we don't get that number? In real terms, you know, and, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can talk about the dollars and cents, but I don't know what $300,000 means in terms of services to the students or whatever. And that's what we need to understand. It brings it much closer to home.
Yep.
Agreed.
Wow, okay. Anyone with any, do you have any issues that you want to talk about? Do you have anything that you, any questions or anything? Sorry, you good?
No, we're fine.
Do we want to discuss the fire alarms?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest we talk about capital a little bit, because I got a lot of phone calls after the last capital meeting.
Sure, sure.
So if you don't, Aaron, why don't you summarize your visit with Capital so that everyone's on the same page?
Right. So we somewhere over the summer, I think we got it onto some of the capital sheets that we presented. We came to realize that parts are no longer available for the fire alarm systems at Wilbraham Middle School and Sewell Road School. Some of this came about, as we dealt with the failure and followed up on the failure at Stony Hill. But it's very clear that the manufacturers no longer make parts for those fire alarm systems. So based on the size and speaking with some of the vendors that we've dealt with, we estimate the cost of Wilbraham Middle School is about $750,000. You'll recall that I'm not going to give a number. I can't remember what the number was offhand for Stony Hill, but it was much higher than we'd expected. We had initially only thought that Stony Hill needed to have the panel replaced, but it turned out to be more significant. This would be replacing, the whole system, not just the panel. It's the strobes, the alarms, things like that. Based on timing, it's absolutely something that would have to be done in parallel. So they need to leave the existing alarm system in while they put in, or the existing in while they put in the new one, and then transfer over and then take out the old. So there's a little bit of work that needs to be done. So it's not something that we could really realistically do as a summer project based on the timing of things like town meetings and things like that.
Excuse me if I can just jump in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we be able to do it, not have to have both in tandem if we had a fire department presence during the time of the installation, if we did do it as a summer project?
I mean, we could, that would be sort of between us and the fire chief and doing a fire watch, but that would be pretty significant cost as well. As you recall, we had just a single hallway at Stony Hill, and we had to post this person. For this, we would probably have to post multiple people for that purpose, right? So it'd have to be every hallway, looking down every hallway. That's where it ended up. So one of the things we talked about is that we could, we don't have to do both of them immediately. If we did one of them, we could use the parts from the one that we took out and repurpose those parts to keep the other system running. That's not an indefinite solution, but it could get us, by us a couple of years maybe.
So you're saying put the new one in Wilbraham Middle School, and with the old one, once we take it out, we can use those parts to fix.
Correct.
Or vice versa.
Parts go.
Or vice versa. I mean,
Yeah, vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, I know where Mark's going with that. I mean, I think it's Wilbraham Middle School has been functioning essentially as the regional middle school soon, and I don't know we don't know what's gonna happen with changes to the regional agreement, but the cost of the capital of Wilbraham Middle School may become shared in the near future. So it might, thus far Wilbraham has been taking the full burden of the capital for Wilbraham Middle School until this point. So if we were gonna, I think that's a great idea of doing one, Aaron, instead of both, because number one, it lessens the initial sticker shock. I think they have to be done, do one year and one the other year. It sounds like it's a pressing need. But, if we do Sewell Road, and then salvage the parks, and then perhaps when it's time to do Wilbraham Middle School, it might end up being a formally regional school at that point, and it could be a shared expense. It doesn't seem like it'd be fair to hit Wilbraham with that, like the year before they'd be sharing expenses. But I'd love to hear Hamda's perspective on that as well, because that's the other side of the fence, right? Hey, welcome to the house. Oh, by the way, here's a bill for the paint.
Understand that whatever comments I make on this are my comments alone, because we as a town, as a committee, have not been aware of this issue, have not discussed it.
Nor have we.
So, yeah. So, I don't want to.
I think this is a brand new issue that we're all talking about for the first time right now.
I don't want to, overcommit on an issue that I know so little about.
Gotcha.
So if I just back up a little bit, I looked at the last capital report I have, which I think dates back to October, and I think for this year the ask is, if you look at the report, I think it's about $10 million this year for the ask. So when we look at that, that document's fine, but it's not really very helpful in identifying anything, because I don't think there's a $10 million ask this year. I wish we'd known about this far sooner than this. It would be a lot easier to handle this, and a lot easier to figure out a way. My hope is we can work collaboratively on these issues, not in ways that aren't collaborative.
Yeah, Mark, in all fairness, I think this is the first we've heard of it. Or
No, I'm with you. I understand. I'm with you.
This is why we put out the $2 million in doors and windows too. You can see through like rust holes in the doors.
I understand. I think, but we need to, if we're going to ask for millions of dollars or $1 million, and I don't know what the number is, but it seems the sooner we do that, the better off we are. So this doesn't seem like it's a new problem. And to walk into a capital meeting in March, or late February, and say, well, we need this money in a month or two is just, it threw everybody. I had texts coming at me, and I have no idea what you're talking about. So I would hope we could work closer in the future on this stuff.
The forms you received were sent to the town a couple months prior. So we sent those in January sometime.
Got it. Oh, I'm not in capital, so I don't know.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that came up.
Is that, so you submitted a document a month earlier to the capital? I don't know. I don't.
It was in January, early January. Yeah, we were ready to present them in December, but we didn't have the forms.
When did we find out about this issue with
This would have been in the fall, probably, when we, yeah.
So in the fall, when we were discussing the long list of long-term capital needs, was this part of that?
I can't remember.
It was not.
Possibly not, yeah.
So the idea of doing one and the idea of doing, so Mike's point around Wilbraham Middle School, I think is very valid. It'll be a significant concern for Wilbraham. The other side of it is it's going to be easier to fit a less costly one in because of the time frame.
Of course, yeah. What cost are we looking at for, you said it was significantly more than you thought, but I haven't seen numbers. Like, do you have if you don't know the exact number, within 100,000, what number we're talking about?
Yeah, we're figuring about 500,000 for Sewell Road and 750 for Wilbraham Middle at this point. Honestly, we've gone through. I know, we've been referred to the capital plan that Wilbraham did. There's also a capital needs assessment from 2015. We've gone through. No one mentioned in those documents either. These weren't items that showed up on those radar screens either. I know those were a few years prior, but you know, all of these things age, we're doing our best to keep up with them.
And to be clear, like alarms that today, they work. They're functioning
yeah.
properly, so there's no critical urgency today.
There's no critical urgency, but.
So, and I'm just,
Yeah.
we have not talked about this
Yeah.
at any level,
Yeah.
at a committee level, so,
Yeah.
but I'm just thinking out loud, is there a reason we couldn't kick this to maybe the fall after we get next year's free cash?
You could. My only warning is if something happens to the system in the interim, right, we'll end up in a Stony Hill situation where we're doing it on an emergency basis. We're having to post fire watches, things like that, right? And so when you're doing something on sort of an exigent basis, we would certainly not, our low bids would not be low bids. They'd be exigent timing bids.
What was the cost for Stony, do you remember, approximately?
It was somewhere over 200,000.
And again,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at options so that we can talk about this.
Right, I mean, that was even further back, that we went back and looked to see if that showed up on any of those other capital plans prior. It didn't hit the radar screen on those. One of the challenges I think we're facing a lot of, particularly with technology-related items, is these companies will just stop making parts. That's our issue, is the system works. If we had parts, the system could run another 5+ years, but they stopped making the parts. The boilers for this building goes back to 2013. Boilers are, 20, 30-year items in many cases. They don't make the specific boiler that we have to replace, so we're actually having to have the new model re-engineered. That was part of the cost that we planned into the whole thing. So it's, that's not even a particularly, when you think of boilers, they're not tech items, right? This is a tech item. More and more companies are stopping making parts earlier and earlier. It's planned obsolescence, right?
How old are the current systems?
They are 20+ years.
Have we looked at other sources to find the parts that we need for this?
Yes.
And we have not been able to find any of those parts.
Yeah, I don't know if we've tried eBay, but we really, this isn't something where we can do many of the repairs ourselves. We've been lucky in that when we do have issues with items, we have been able to sort of pull down the sensors, clean them out, and get them back up, and they work.
I wasn't talking eBay, I was talking like, if the manufacturer doesn't have them anymore, but some of the companies, the installers and stuff, they have parts and
So
such.
we've kind of gone through that.
20 years has to be end of life, though. I'm not sure it's reasonable to expect the system to last longer than that. It's just, we should have maybe had it on a schedule for
Yeah,
replacement, so
yeah.
it didn't come up as a
I think
surprise.
if and when we do these, we'll start the clock ticking on the next round, and I'll put them out 10 years or something, just to be safe and see
Yeah,
what
like
happens.
when we buy the new system, ask the manufacturer, what is
Yeah.
the expected lifespan for this, and then put an earmark in the calendar to do that.
Yeah.
Dare I ask?
No.
Oh, come on, Mark, of course.
Yeah.
The Green Meadows renovation addition is now about probably 22 or 23
Yeah.
years. I'm wondering if.
I will take a look at that one as
If
well.
those systems are
Yeah.
within the scope here, of what we're looking at.
Middle school and Green Meadows, all that. Join the club.
We certainly need a plan. We have a lot of expenses
Yeah.
coming into town in the next few years.
I'll get back to you on that then.
And the other thing was, Green Meadows, there had been some exterior doors on the capital list. Has anything happened to those?
No, so sort of what happens is, we provide our capital lists to the town, to you all. Wilbraham has a defined process for it, so, there's forms they send us, I fill them out. Hamden has typically given us $15,000 a year, right? And just said, do it as you need.
Right, well, that's the lease, that's what's in the lease, is that $15,000 figure. But I mean, in terms of specific capital requests.
Yeah, I can push that
We
forward.
had an issue over there with the buried reservoir for the fire suppression system, and we had to dig that up, and that was like $15,000 or $20,000, whatever it was. So anyway, you know, we've had capital items outside of the lease.
Okay.
And I assume those doors.
Yeah,
I don't have those documents.
Yeah. There's not been a process, and I've just been told since I got here by the guys in facilities that we just get X dollars a year and we use it as we can, so I apologize.
No, it's fine.
It needs to
So
go another way.
let's circle back to that.
Okay.
You know, if I'm assuming they haven't gotten any better since they were initially identified as an issue. We can look at putting those either on the warrant for the spring or hold it to the fall. Those are the kind of items that I prefer to address as they come up.
Of course.
Turn into an urgent issue. Pound of what is it, an ounce of production.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get that to you then.
Thanks.
Mark, is there, right now, we're in budget season, and you're dealing with the budget, and I know there's different buckets of money in the, for the town. Is there a different way that we could present this or go about getting Stony Hill fire system funded that would make it, the school road school funded, that would make it easier on the budget process for the town?
Well, we treat capital outside of the budget, so there's the operating budget, then there's the capital budget. No, I think we have to push it through the capital process. And we're in the midst of it now. It just wasn't activated at any level. Certainly dealing with $500,000 is a lot better than dealing with $1.25 million. And I don't want to, we just have to figure it out. I mean, I don't know. I mean, something's going to have to give. We'll have to borrow the money on a short-term basis or something. I mean, but I don't know how that will work itself out. But Barbara Hancock has it now. And we talked to her a little bit last night about it, so she was going to start doing some magic with all these numbers. We are changing the way we're going to, it looks like we're going to change the way we've done capital for the last number of years, at least the last decade, probably longer than that. We were using free cash solely for, we were funding, let me say it this way, we were funding capital solely on a cash basis. We may deviate from that. We may go away from that and try to plan it out better with some short-term borrowing, but that's not yet decided. So there might be a little bit more flexibility to do it that way, but we still got to pay that back, so it's not like it's free money.
And I would just say to everyone here that if we have any emergency capital costs that come up that are more than, say, $50,000 or something like that, to make sure it's on the radar of everybody. We're all working together, and like you said, with notice of this in the fall, we could have worked on this in the fall. There might have been a different way of skinning the cat, so to speak. But thank you. Is there anything else anyone would like to talk about the budget?
Just want to be clear, June 21st is when you're voting on your budget, so we're getting right up against it. Is that right, Michelle?
Not June.
I'm not June, I'm sorry, I said June, I meant March.
March 21st.
March 21st.
That's to meet Hampton's town meeting.
Okay, so we're 2 weeks out, so we got to, all right.
Yep.
And you'll get back to us on the color sheet, right? The
Yeah, I'll take a look at
that
that
one up.
Yes, absolutely. Some things, odd, and there might be a salary I missed.
I think we need to work on, for the schedule for the next meeting. I do want to thank Mrs. Kennedy, whose birthday it is tonight. She says she is 23 years old. And thank you to her for pushing her birthday celebration off to Saturday. I will not be sleeping in the doghouse tonight. It's good news. What do we, I guess we would like to meet in a week. Is that what we're looking at here or so?
Do we want to meet next Thursday?
When do you think that we'll have more concrete numbers?
Yeah, I would hope, there's no exactly telling when, but we could plan to meet in a week.
If we're meeting with finance on Wednesday, would it make sense to meet before that, or if anything changes? I just throw it out there, I don't know if anything's gonna change.
I'll just point out that 7:30 time was put out there because both Michelle and I will be in another meeting before that, so if you do have a prior meeting, we won't be able to be there.
No.
I think he means on the 12th, maybe.
I meant the
March
next 12th, like Tuesday or something like that, or Monday or
Okay,
Tuesday.
got it. I thought you meant right. No, we do have, no, we don't, Tuesday's okay, I think.
We don't have anything Tuesday.
I'm not looking for more meetings, frankly, but if we want to meet, it might, and again, if it doesn't work, then we'll just meet Thursday, but
Don't have anything
Tuesday.
on Tuesday the 12th.
I'd hate to see changes made on Thursday after FinCom meets Wednesday, because we're only meeting one more time.
Just have something at 12th, 14th are clear.
Early, on the 12th, earlier is definitely better for me. I'm committed at like 6:30 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm committed on 6:30 as well for the same meeting, I believe.
Aaron asked when you were something 2 to 3:30 on Tuesday.
Well, why don't we do this? What will be presented at this meeting is a more
Refine, pretty much.
defined budget.
What we'd be presenting on the 21st.
So how does everyone say if we have a meeting from 5:30 to 6? A half an hour meeting just to review those and to go over some changes and such like that. Would that be enough time?
What day are we saying?
Tuesday the 12th.
I have no issues with that.
What about you, Mark?
I'm fine before that, so.
It's good.
I don't know, is a half an hour going to be sufficient, do you think?
It's going to be sufficient for you to get here in time.
Okay.
Okay. So we're looking at the 12th?
Tuesday the 12th,
Yep.
5:30 to 6. Here, or do you want it in, we can do it in the district office?
Yeah, we'll do it at the district office. Does that work as well? Yeah, okay. At 5:30.
And John, you're gonna have for that meeting, like, let's hypothesize that the budget, you know, we're gonna need more than $1 million from Wilbraham, what the impact in terms of cuts would be.
Let's start with
Yeah, we can have some
So
conversations.
let's hypothesize Wilbraham's gonna go to $1 million, and so then, you know, like, right now with this budget, and we have a gap of $297,000, and how that gap will be bridged, either by cut impacts, or, magically.
Whatever that number turns out to be.
The pot of gold and the rainbow.
So, you know, I guess I would ask for some direction, maybe from this group, because one of the things that this budget includes is the adjustment that we were instructed by this group to make to include the cost of the Chromebook program in our operating budget instead of as a capital cost. So, I mean, that might be the first thing I'm looking at. So, would you want us to put it back in capital, I guess is the question that I would ask.
It's not going to get funded in capital either, so, I mean, just because you got to ask, it wasn't for the fire alarms. It wasn't for the fire alarms, I think we could have a discussion, but I don't want to speak for them, but I'm going to get back to that $1 million number.
And what happens if the Chromebooks aren't purchased? Will we be able to move along, or?
It will be another group of technology that's beyond the end of life that could go at any time.
So, no, we can't move along. And then it'll be twice the need the next year, right? Because it's an annual need.
Correct.
That's been budgeted in, so.
And the goal shouldn't be to limp along
No, well, I'm,
I will say this, John, when you did that list last year, from my perspective, you did a really nice job with that. So it wasn't necessarily super specific, but it was clear on where the cuts would be made. So it was general enough, but it was specific enough. And I thought you did a nice balance on that. So something like that, I think, is helpful for FinCom to understand the impact. This is a worthy discussion around the Chromebooks. I don't have an easy answer for it.
Okay.
Do you want to prioritize this? Is that?
I think that's part of it, right? I mean, where is this?
Let's make it a more likely, like if, you know, if we don't get anything above $1 million, you know, likely what are we gonna have to do? And by the way, that $1 million is not guaranteed.
I don't think anybody's gonna hold your feet to the fire, but at the same time, it gives everybody a sense of what the reality is.
Yeah. All right, we have our next meeting. Anyone else have anything else that they would like to, based on the topics we've already had here, any other thoughts or anything before we depart?
Just one, and I apologize for being in late, because I ended up at the conference room instead of the IRC. And you may have discussed this prior to my arrival, but is there any indication from our legislative folks what we're looking at for funding this year? Any kind of whispers, either with invested or without?
Yeah, so as you probably know, statewide revenues have been down. I had a conversation with a local legislator over lunch last Friday. I think that there is commitment to things like regional transportation reimbursement, circuit breaker reimbursement, and of course the core Chapter 70 program. But I don't think there's going to be much beyond that this year.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. Thank you.
The only thing we can do is just call your state reps and voice your concerns, and if enough people put pressure, maybe that'll change, but there you go.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye, all good? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.